The Brandon Aiyuk saga ticks on, but is there a fundamental change that the 49ers need to make in the way they do business? We'll talk about it next. What is good, everybody? Welcome to the Gold Standard Podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network and the Fans First Sports Network. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. He is Levin Black. It is Wednesday night as we record this, 50 days away from the start of the regular season.
I'll settle for the start of training camp. We're at that point. Regular season's obviously so much better, but at this point, I'll take anything.
Well, we're less than 7 days away from the start of training camp. That's got to get you excited, right?
Next week's show, we'll be talking training camp stuff.
Right. We will have
probably still talking Brandon Aiyuk contract stuff, but
you're not wrong. But yeah, you're right. We will have actual stuff to talk about. It's going to be awesome. And hopefully by then we will have our college football 25 online dynasty up and running. Again, I can't get into the game now. I don't have access to it until Friday. So it's going to take me. I'm not paying EA Sports any more money than I absolutely have to. So forget that. If you want,
we got a short show today because I got to go back up. I'm halfway through season 1. So
are you serious? You're playing already?
Heck yeah, I'm playing already.
Oh my God. I feel like that's cheating, man. We're supposed to have this online dynasty. If you want to join, become a YouTube channel member. It's less than $3 a month. I'll post all the information on our YouTube.
It's not cheating for me to play the game. You're just being cheap.
I'm not being cheap.
It's a business expense.
I did use the business card to buy it. Not gonna lie, I absolutely did. But if you want to sign up again, become a YouTube channel member. It's less than $3 a month. You get priority comment response, a bunch of other stuff, and I will get something. I haven't decided what it's going to be yet, but it'll be an autographed jersey or an autographed helmet, something cool like that. Though we will have a prize that
I will buy a Niners shirt and I'll autograph it.
Yes, if you want
something
that will lower the value of the item, Levin is willing to ruin your prize. But we will get that up and running. We will have information for you. We'll get to the Brandon Aiyuk stuff in a second. But now that I know you've been playing, I have to ask, how is it?
It is awesome. It is also not that much different. And there is definitely going to be cheap things to exploit. So for instance, the number 2 wide receiver on Purdue, I happen to notice has 98 speed. You know what I just had in my last game? 369 receiving yards with him. Because if he goes deep, nobody can stay with him.
Well, but you know what? I like that rather than a guy that's 85 speed going step for step with him, which I feel like sometimes would happen in Madden and drive me nuts. So,
well, yeah, but in real life, just because you have the speed doesn't mean you get open deep every single time. So I basically I send that guy deep every play and I watch the safety. If the safety doesn't go over there instantly, then I know because he'll beat the safety even. If the safety drops back and then tries to go to the outside, it's too late.
That's like Brock Purdy seeing that Jamal Adams' feet were flat-footed and throwing a Debo as he went right by against the Seahawks earlier this year. That's still a touchdown that stands out in my mind. Okay, that is cool. I'm excited to play. I'm literally counting the days. So let's get right to it. Brandon Aiyuk requests a trade. We're still sort of responding to that, I guess you could say. Here is my question, because the rumor popped up from Pretty Ricky, who, despite Tim Kawakami wanting to throw shade at Pretty Ricky, he's been way more accurate with his stories, or broken way more stories, or predicted more stories, whatever you want to say, than anybody on the 49ers beat. He said the Raiders are open to, they're interested in trading for Brandon Aiyuk, and they would include Devontae Adams in a trade. I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to my show with Grant that we did early on Wednesday. I assume no. My thing was, it doesn't really make sense to me for the Raiders to do this, or really the 49ers, unless they just feel like the relationship with Brandon Aiyuk is completely unsalvageable, that there is no way he will ever suit up and play for the 49ers again. Then maybe you make this move if you're San Francisco. But other than that, I really don't see it happening, although it is fun to think about.
All right, so a bunch of things there. First off, It makes more sense for the Raiders than the 49ers, but I'll get into that a little more and explain why after I say the Pretty Ricky you're talking about. One thing I do feel like should be mentioned, he's gotten a certain level of credibility because he's been right on a lot of things, but the things that he's been able to break is all actual transactions with the NFL. That's why I and some others have started responding, like especially around the draft, that this guy works in the NFL front office because he's seeing transactions as they come through. And usually it takes like an hour or so for them to process them. And then the rest of the media kind of finds out because it becomes official and the teams know. And this guy keeps consistently beating them by about an hour. So I think he works probably in the financial department or something to where he's seen NFL transactions come through. The important part here is this is not a transaction. This is a rumor. So this is going a little bit off script for him. So take that with a grain of salt. I'm not saying he's wrong. He has been right very often. I'm just saying this is a difference from what he's been doing. So I take it with a little bit more of a grain of salt. Whereas before I started, basically, if he says something, it's true. In terms of the teams, the reason it makes more sense for the Raiders is if the Raiders trade Devontae, they actually will save significant money. They will be able to. Devontae currently has a pretty big dead cap hit if you just look at the base of the contract. But the way it's written, his contract, if they were to trade him post June 1st, which this would be, he would only have a $7.5 million dead cap hit, which is the prorated signing bonus of this season. That's it. And so they would save about $10 million. Now you're bringing in Aiyuk, right? So, or sorry, they would save $17 million. You're bringing in Aiyuk. So that savings only goes down to $3 million. But if they're bringing in Aiyuk, they're going to give him an extension, and his contract for this year is going to be worth less of a salary cap hit than the 14.1 currently scheduled. So if the Raiders do it, they would save $10 million this year, and they get the younger player that's entering their prime over the player. So it makes sense from a Raiders standpoint if it's something they're open to. Plus, like Devontae just kind of trashed the organization and the quarterbacks and everything like that in receiver. So it might be a time for a change there. The Niners, it makes no sense. They bring in Devontae, they're going to have a higher salary cap hit than what Aiyuk is going to cost them, even if Aiyuk stays on his fifth-year option of 14.1. Devontae Adams would have a $17.5 million salary cap hit. And then on top of that, Devontae Adams' contract was written as a balloon contract, and that balloon is next year. Now, all guaranteed money's gone, so the Niners could just, after the season, move on and be done with it. But then you're trading Aiyuk for a single season of Devontae Adams. That doesn't make sense. But at the same time, Devontae Adams has his salary cap hits is going to 35 plus million. So you're not going to keep him at that. So now you're talking extension. Well, if Devontae Adams is going to sign an extension, what's he going to sign for? $30 million a year. So it makes no sense from the 49ers standpoint. You're going to pay an aging vet who's entering decline $30 plus million a year and make your salary cap hit this season be bigger than signing the 26-year-old. It doesn't make any sense.
If they win a Super Bowl, it'd be okay, right? You'd live with it.
Because you would live with it, but people would always say, well, they probably would have still won that with Aiyuk. Unless Adams had like 150 yards in the Super Bowl.
Right, unless he went absolutely nuts. I agree with everything you said, for the record. Like, I think it again, to me, it would have to be if they felt there was no way they were sure there was no way he was ever going to play again. Because let's say you make that move, even if you get to the Super Bowl with him, if you don't win it, and then you cut him after the year, then you have no Aiyuk, you have no Debo, you have no Super Bowl, and you really only have maybe Debo if he's still on the team, which I guess he probably would be, and you have Ricky Pearsall. And that's not exactly the talent of the wide receiver room that we've seen in recent years.
Okay, so here's the counterpoint to that. If you get Devontae, as I just explained, you can see it there in what you have on the screen for the YouTube people. $35.6 million is his salary next season. The salary,
base salary, yeah,
and the base salary and the roster bonuses is what the acquiring team will be forced to pay. So you take out that prorated signing bonus from what the 49ers would pay. So his cap hit wouldn't be as big as what you're seeing there at 44 million. It would be the 35.64 plus the 5.10 for just over 36 million next year. That's not going to happen. So that means if you trade for Devontae, you're in the same boat next year where you have to move on from him. I don't think you should give Devontae 30 plus million on an extended deal at his age. But the difference is with Aiyuk, you have the franchise and trade option. With Devontae, you don't have that option because he's under contract technically. So you only have the cut option. With Aiyuk, even if you say, okay, we're never going to have an extension, he's playing out his 5th-year option, and then we're moving on, you still have the franchise and trade and get something like a 3rd or 4th round pick. So it's still better to keep Aiyuk.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. Like, it's fun to think about because I think Aiyuk would be, or Adams would be awesome in this offense. I think he's still a really good player. I think at this point, maybe for one more year, I think he's better than Brandon Aiyuk. After that, I would probably say BA will, age factors in and then there's a toss up, but I ultimately don't think it's going to happen. Meme and Wallpaper Guy watching on YouTube says, yo, what's good? This is my first live stream with you guys. Thank you. Appreciate it. Keep listening. I think we will earn your time if you give us the opportunity. So please keep watching and come back often. Brisbee Life, shout out to the Twitch fam, says Adams is the only way the Niners don't get worse this year in a trade, but it doesn't make sense for all the financial reasons Levin is saying. Don't make sense on the program, Levin. I don't like it when I have to agree with you.
Well, if it's a numbers situation, I'll finally make sense.
Which leads me to the topic I want to get to, the title of the YouTube video. This is what the 49ers have done, right? We have seen in the past, they have been very late to make moves on people. For good, bad, or ugly, this is the 49ers policy. I think it's clear at this point. And my question to you, Levin, is what do the 49ers get out of acting this way? They don't win these negotiations. They end up paying the player market rates. They set the market with Fred Warner. They set the market with Kittle. They set it with Trent Williams. They gave Deebo Samuel a market rate. It wasn't the highest wide receiver contract, but it was right in line with what A.J. Brown and somebody else, I can't remember who at the time, got. But they were all represented by the same guy, and they all basically got the same contract. CMC just set the market for running backs. Like, they still end up paying at the top of the market. So what do the 49ers get out of being this much of a pain in the ass with this stuff?
Absolutely nothing. That's why it doesn't make sense. Like, you forgot George Kittle in that.
Right.
He was at top of the market until recently. Like, they have, I think, 6 guys that have gotten contracts that are top of the market over the last 5 years or so. Like, there's zero reason to be doing this. I think it made sense at one point in time. It certainly makes sense for, I think, the kind of mid-level vets that you want to bring back, but you don't want to overpay. But for the guys that are truly great, all pro level players, you're going to pay them the market rate because somebody will trade to acquire for that player and pay them the market rate. It's not the same for your, the guys that are starters, but they're not stars. Those guys, nobody's trading for and then giving them a decent contract. You know what I mean? They're not worth it. So I think it's different when you're talking stars and they're being misguided. They're being stuck in their ways rather than adjusting to the new thing. And I think there is a certain aspect to this that look and predict what that specific player's position is going to have happen. Because I think it is different. If that's the only player this offseason at that position that's elite, going to be able to almost reset the market, come up, close to it or reset it, then maybe you can sit back and be tough because that's the only person. But everybody knew this was the offseason of the wide receiver and that the market was going to constantly get upped. And so you didn't want to be the last team to do it because it was going to cost you more money. It was just misguided. And to me, frankly, the 49ers dropped the ball on this one.
Andre Garibet, YouTube channel member, he can play in the CFB 25 league. All it does is hurt the relationship with the player. Every offseason, it's the same crap. Parag acts like the money is coming out of his own account. Look, I get it. It's his job to try and get these deals done for the lowest amount possible. The problem is he doesn't. Again, we just talked about all the players that have set the market with the 49ers. And you could say, well, maybe they would have gotten more, but no agent is going to ever go to the poorhouse by telling his player, I got you the highest contract at your position. So I don't understand what the 49ers gain out of this. I really don't. I know that Brandon Aiyuk said that they tried to negotiate right after the season, and they were close on a deal, and then the market blew up, and Brandon Aiyuk is not going to take a deal that's below the market when the market changes, and the 49ers have to acknowledge that, and I just think that this is not the best way to go about it. Now, maybe, I do want to say this, maybe the 49ers decided once those negotiations didn't come to fruition, and once they gave Brandon Aiyuk permission to seek a trade before the draft and they didn't get an offer they wanted, maybe they said, we're done. Our decision is made. We've put the offer out. We'll leave it on the table. You're welcome to take it. Other than that, you're playing on the 5th-year option. Because if you remember, in that Mike Garafolo report of the trade request, it said the 49ers haven't engaged in negotiations with Aiyuk since May. Well, what happens at the end of April? The draft. So I'm wondering if once that was clear, and remember John Lynch after the draft right away in that press conference said, we're done, we're closed for business. Maybe they decided that's it. If you want to take the offer, go ahead, but we're done talking about it because this is what we're offering.
It's possible. I think it's doubtful. I think the Niners usually go dark at this point, and they just kind of call your bluff. Like, all right, how much of training camp are you truly willing to miss? Is kind of how they play it. The insane part is I think they've gotten worse in recent years. I think they've gone down even further to the path of we're going to wait to do these things. Because, like, look at Buckner. They knew well before the draft,
right,
shortly after the season, that this is never going to work out. So go find a trade, right? Like, they knew then. They know when they start these negotiations in February, March, whether or not it's ever going to reach a point that they can come to an agreement.
But here's the difference. Buckner found a trade, and so they did it. Aiyuk didn't. Like, if they had gotten the 13th pick in the draft, I don't think Brandon Aiyuk would be on the 49ers right now. They couldn't get that. I think the Niners would have done the same thing.
I think it depends on what the contract is. They knew from Buckner right away that first off, the Niners salary cap situation when Buckner was coming due was much different.
Right.
They were hamstrung to a degree. Right now, the Niners have one of, if not the best salary cap situation in the entire league. They're, I think, 6th in space at $31.5 million.
Yeah.
And they can roll all of that over if they want. And if they do an Aiyuk extension, they're going to jump to first place in salary cap space in all likelihood. Obviously, exactly how Aiyuk's contract is set up changes things, but the way they've almost all been when they get big contracts is the first year is minimum salary and then just the prorated salary bonus. And if that's what they do, Aiyuk's cap hit's going to go down like 7-8 million, and that's enough to jump them to having the most salary cap space in the entire league, which then makes it easy to give Purdy his money.
Look, I can't pretend to be an expert in the cap, but it seems pretty obvious that they can get this done if they wanted to. I saw this tweet from Tim Kawakami. This is something that you and I have talked about. When you sign these big contracts, you have to put money aside in escrow. And some people think that the Niners wait to do this because Jed York doesn't want to put the money in escrow. And Tim Kawakami tweeted, I've heard the delaying escrow theory suggested by NFL people when trying to explain the 49ers' repeated prolonged negotiations. Recently, I've been informed that the actual escrow deposits don't quite work that way. Basically, this is just the 49ers negotiating style. Yay. There's one other part of this that I wonder if this is gumming up the works, not just for the Aiyuk contract, but possibly because they know that Purdy's coming down the line. And that's this, Levin. The NFL, as it stands right now, has to pay out huge money in the DirecTV lawsuit. Each team
some of it to this guy.
Not a small amount, by the way. As it stands right now, you would get thousands of dollars. Each team has to pay over $400 million.
It's like 405 currently.
Right. Every single team has to pay that. And according to Pro Football Talk, I saw the league has given the teams no guidance as to how they should do that. Now, look, we all talk about these owners as billionaires, and they are, but there is a difference between being a billionaire and having $1 billion liquid, like $1 billion in your checking account that you can just use to buy and sell whatever. And I know they're billionaires, but 400+ million ain't a small amount of money. And so I wonder if there's a part of Jed York, it's like, well, wait, I'm going to have to put the Brock money in escrow. Now we want to sign Brandon Aiyuk. I've got this $400+ million shadow, hanging over my head. Could that be a part of this?
Yes, but not quite in the way that you're putting it. It's not that Jed York can't afford. I think it's more so like the owners have all talked, and they might have said, like, the owners might know, like, if we end up having to pay this, we are going to force that to come out of the salary cap. We're going to say the salary cap doesn't go up this year, or we're going to say the salary cap needs to be, $40 million less a year for the next 10 years than what it should be to help pay for this, which obviously the players would fight, but you know how the NFL goes. They're going to just say, no, screw you. So it might be that they know they're going to try to kind of bring the salary cap down. And so Jed York's looking at it and he's relayed that to John Lynch that, hey, we might not have the salary cap space that you're anticipating due to this DirecTV Sunday ticket situation.
First of all, Brisbee Life on Twitch is winning the comment of the night so far, says it's official. Levin is directly hurting the Niners' future cap situation.
I am very happy to do so if it means money in my pocket.
I think we can all agree on that.
Brandon Aiyuk can go to whatever team he wants if it means I get some of that money that he was going to get. You give me like, boy, I don't even know at what point I would say, you know what, I'm fine with it. Because part of me goes, hey, it's just a game. And part of me goes, damn it, I haven't seen a Super Bowl in 30 plus years. So 10 grand, no, I probably still want Aiyuk on the team. But you start saying like, oh, 11 gets 100 grand if we trade Aiyuk. I'm saying, see you later. Do you want me to fly out to San Francisco and pack your bags for you?
Absolutely. But I think we all agree you are hurting the team and you are a selfish man.
Well, I am an aggregator, so.
Oh, well, we know those are terrible people. The salary cap is determined by dividing a percentage of the league's revenue by 32, which of course is the number of teams in the NFL. But does the league and the owners find some like creative accounting because of this DirecTV thing to say, well, see, we really didn't actually make as much money as you think we made.
This comes out of revenue budget because it's money we shouldn't have made.
Right.
Which obviously the Players Association would then argue, hold on, you did something criminally illegal. You pay it.
Oscar Alfaro, YouTube channel member, says teams receive $400 million from 2023 revenue sharing. This was a literal check they just got a few weeks ago. I can't say if that's true or not. I don't know.
It is Green Bay's info is public because they're traded. They're a stock.
Right.
So they received, I think, I'm going off a memory of just seeing the headline, like 423 million, I think it was, million for their revenue share of last year.
Is that so? That's all the money that they made the last year?
Yeah. So that's the difference here. Yes, they just got $400+ million, but that doesn't mean that they could just then give it away. All of that money didn't just go into savings. It helps foot the bill of everything else. That 400 million is going to pay player salaries. It's going to pay for the upkeep of the stadium,
right? All
those things. And that's going to end up coming. Don't get me wrong. They make plenty of profit, but all those things, I mean, the salary cap is 256 million or something like that. So like a good chunk of it doesn't end up profit. They'll probably end up spending 350 million of it. So if they suddenly had to pay 400 million of it, they don't have enough to foot the bills of the coming year.
The Packers had a total revenue of $654 million, combining the national money with local revenue.
Yeah.
We're not holding any bake sales for these teams, but I'm just saying, like, it's not an insignificant amount that these teams are going to have to shoulder, and I don't know how much that factors into the contract negotiations. Cocking03 says, Stats, what are you sipping on? Wine. I'm drinking wine tonight because we had a little bit left in the fridge, and I didn't want to put the bottle back in, so I said, screw it, I'll just drink it.
What kind of wine and what you got to drink to be able to talk to me?
Yes, and the alcoholic kind. I have no idea. When it comes to wine, I know red and white. I know I like it all. I don't care what, this is a Chardonnay, this is a Zinfandel, this is a Cabernet, whatever. I'm in. Just give it to me.
Yeah, I'm not a big red fan.
Really?
Yeah.
That's terrible. Red wine is the best wine. Andre says, drink from the bottle. Well, if this Aiyuk situation doesn't get squared away, I just might.
Hey, alcohol companies, we're looking for a sponsor.
That's right. You know what? You want to throw us some of your money? We will take it. I'll be the biggest fan of your wine.
I was going to say, even if I don't like whatever sponsors us, I will drink it on the air and smile. Assuming you give me a cut of whatever the sponsorship is.
Well, whoa. Let's not get crazy here.
I'm not going to sit and lie to our fans if I'm not getting paid to do it.
It's like your loyalty can be bought, is what we know. Somebody said, Cocking 03 says wine, thought it maybe was bourbon. I usually do drink like an old fashioned. That's usually what I drink if I'm not drinking beer on the show. But just like I said, had that a little extra wine.
You struck me as a one drink and you're done guy.
At night, like during the week, yeah. I mean,
at like 125 pounds or whatever little number you weigh.
140 pounds. First of all, it's all muscle. And no, I don't get drunk. First of all, I don't get drunk ever. But like with the kid, when I have the kids, like you can't get drunk. Yeah. You never know what the hell's gonna. I have learned the hard way. You never know what the hell is going to happen, especially when you have young kids. So no, it's a one drink for me.
Yep, I am the same way. I do not get drunk anymore unless it's like a super rare special occasion.
Like when the 49ers win the Super Bowl?
No, probably not, because in that moment I want to be living it. I will have a drink and celebrate, but I'm not getting drunk because I want to remember it and be able to truly experience it and having my full mental capability, not just being like, yeah, they won, and then I don't remember much else.
You could drink and get drunk without getting blackout drunk.
It's not like you're not quite the same. You don't remember everything.
Fish and Chips says 140 pounds, stats kicker only. That's mean, but accurate.
Not even kicker. Jake Moody weighs like 210 pounds.
Jake Moody was like smaller than me. I mean, we stood next to him on the field in Vegas when I interviewed him, which is up on our YouTube page. You can go check it out. Not now.
This is our time.
Thank you. Brisbee Life says the massive drinking would be for a Super Bowl loss. Well, we've already lived through two of those. I mean, if there's one thing I feel like I could tolerate at this point, it's a Super Bowl loss. I mean, God, we've gone through two of them. I know how to do it. I've trained for this moment.
Yeah, if there's a third Super Bowl loss, it might be 3 strikes and I'm out. I don't know if I can stomach another one.
Cocking 03 says when the Niners win the Super Bowl, we will cheers with an old fashioned on the instant reaction show. We will cheers with more than one on the instant.
I had champagne bought for the Super Bowl.
You did? Oh man.
Remember I drank it anyways, and you're like, what are you doing? And I was like, I drank it after the NFC Championship game. I had one. And then afterwards, I was like, well, I got it. I'm freaking drinking my alcohol.
I don't abide that. I mean, champagne is for winners.
Yeah. We won the NFC Championship game. I didn't drink it on air. I drank something else on air. And then afterwards, it was sitting in the fridge. And I was like, I have it. I better drink it.
Oh, man, this never happens to me. I feel a sneeze coming, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to stop it.
But give us the play-by-play like you're doing. That's great podcasting. Play-by-play of a sneeze they can't even see.
Well, I'm sorry. I feel like I can't look at the light. If I look at the light, it's going to happen.
Just look at the light and get it over with.
I know, you're right. Let me talk about this. I didn't mention this to you before the show because I forgot about it, but I did want to spring this on you because it was something.
I showed up late, but
yeah,
that might be the reason why you didn't mention something.
This came up. I was on 95.7 The Game today with Bonte and Shasky, and they just kind of threw it in. I think it was Shasky that did. Like, oh, Debo's an all-time 49er. And I was like, is he an all-time? Like, hold on. Let me stop and think about this. I'm not so sure. And where I came down on the interview is he could be, but at this moment right now, if Deebo Samuel never played another down of football for the 49ers again, I don't put him as an all-time 49er. Do you?
You're not an all-time 49er having one great year.
That's
Deebo's had one great year and a couple decent ones. But no, you're not an all-time Niner. To me, you're not an all-time Niner. Well, no, I won't go that far. I was going to say you're not an all-time Niner unless you win a Super Bowl, but Frank Gore is an all-time Niner. T.O. is an all-time Niner. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. T.O., Patrick Willis, Frank Gore, all-time 49ers. And I know that Patrick Willis didn't play that long, but he only played 7 years. He only played for the 49ers, and he was pretty much an all-pro for 6 of the 7 years or 5 of the 7, something like that. So to me,
all but the last, yeah.
So he had great years, not just like solid years.
He has an argument for being the best of all time at his position. Now, obviously, he would lose that argument to Ray Lewis, but after that, it's a very legitimate argument that Patrick Willis is the best linebacker in terms of peak ability in the league.
Jonathan O'Rourke says Levin does a show with Vish, and now he's showing up late. SMH.
I can't help when a 4-year-old decides she's not going to sleep and starts screaming for you at 8:25.
I think I got those guys a little riled up. They started rattling off, the great games Debo has had. And as I said, like, he has had a bunch games where he has taken over, no doubt. And I'm not saying
did they come in the Super Bowl. Okay, I will say that if you're saying, well, he has great games, even though his career numbers aren't there, the great game has to be in the Super Bowl.
He did have a very good Super Bowl in 2019 as a rookie.
He did.
But he's missed a lot of time. And as I said to them, like, if you gave me 2021 Debo Samuel all the time, no doubt, if every year of his career was like that, he'd be a Hall of Famer and he'd be an all-time 49er. But that's not the case. So he can become an all-time 49er.
Yeah.
Have a couple more good years, and I would be more than happy to put him in there because he is an incredible player. He's an incredibly versatile player. But to me, I need more. Maybe I'm being stingy. I don't know. But I would like to see a couple more years of good Debo before I put him in an all-time 49er. We're not talking about the Panthers here or the Jaguars. We're talking about the 49ers. We
got the Panthers all time. He's our running back right now, still in his prime.
That's true. And he's not there either, by the way. McCaffrey is not an all-time 49er. No, even though he's been great. I have a high standard, I guess. And Shasky said, well, you can't tell the story of the 49ers over these past years without talking about Debo Samuel. But that's not the bar for me, because you can't tell the story of the New York Giants without talking about David Tyree, who made the helmet catch in the Super Bowl.
I was going to say, you can't tell the story of the 49ers of the Harbaugh years without bringing up Kyle Williams. So,
right. Like, there are guys you have to include in the story. To me, that doesn't make them all time for their franchise. David Tyree was cut by the Giants the next year. He can't be an all-time Giant for one play. I'm sorry, especially when that play didn't score any points, didn't win a Super Bowl. Like, they could have had that play and still lost the Super Bowl. So it's not just, did you make a play? Did you have a good game? And now you're an all-time player on the team. Modelo Time 1999 on Twitch, I agree, says Debo's on the second team all-time list. I would agree with that right now.
Yeah, he's on the list of guys that have had great years that will be remembered for an entire generation, but isn't on that all-time team. Debo's definitely behind John Taylor, and I'm probably the lowest guy on John Taylor of anybody. And he's still behind John Taylor. Like, his career numbers aren't even there. And it's not like it's somebody that, he's only 3 years into his career, but look at the 3 years. Like, Justin Jefferson is on a team that had Chris Carter and Randy Moss. He's an all-timer already because he's had 3 ridiculously good years. I wouldn't put him above Chris Carter or Randy Moss, but he's number 3 right there. And they've had some other good wide receivers. His 3 years are ridiculously good. Debo's only 5 years into his career?
Yeah.
For you to be an all-timer 5 years into a career, you better have multiple Super Bowls while performing big for the team, or you better have historically great seasons.
And Andre says, is Kittle an all-time 49er being a tight end? Yes, he is. Yeah. Because to me, George Kittle is the best tight end the 49ers have ever had. So that puts you as if you're the best all-time at your position for a team, you're an all-timer for that team. And to me, George Kittle is the best tight end in the history of the 49ers. Sorry, Brent Jones. Sorry, Vernon Davis. George is number 1. And Vernon Davis has told me that George is better than him. So I don't think I'm speaking out of turn.
George Kittle has an argument for being top 10 all-time as a tight end. Not top 5. He's not close. He won't probably reach that conversation because you'd have to have probably another 3 years of 1,000 yards to even start to get there. But he has an argument for top 10 between his blocking and his receiving ability.
I don't know. I'd have to explore that. I'm not willing to say you're right.
That's why I said has an argument, and I didn't say he's in the top 10 because I would have to look.
Kenny 49ers says Brent Jones was just talking on another show. That's rough. Look, Brent Jones, unfortunately, he's like TE3 all time on the 49ers. I think it's Kittle, Vernon Davis, and then Brent Jones.
Brent Jones was like Trying to think of an equivalent person. He was good for about a decade, but he was never great. He was
Right.
never like a dominant, never entered that conversation of, ooh, he might be the best tight end in the league right now.
Where I think I give Brent Jones love and a lot of credit. He's the guy that roomed with Steve Young and dealt with a lot of Steve Young's like crap. Not crap. Steve Young had a lot of mental anxiety and a lot of stuff to deal with off the field. And he went to Brent Jones a lot to deal with it. If you read Steve Young's book, he talks about how Brent Jones was a sounding board for him for years. And it really, really helped him. So I give Brent Jones all the credit in the world for that. He deserves credit. But in terms of just on the field as players, yeah, I'm sorry. It's Kittle, it's Vernon Davis, it's Brent Jones.
Yeah. And Vernon Davis doesn't have a conversation with Kittle. And quite honestly, he should, but that's on Vernon Davis. Vernon Davis, in terms of like pure raw talent, is the most talented tight end there's ever been in the league.
I mean, he ran a 4.38 at 6'3", 250.
I was gonna say, and he had the strength of Trent Williams almost. You know what I mean? Like he could have been a crazy dominant blocker if he wanted to be.
The thing about Vernon Davis, I'm 99% sure he's the only tight end in history to have 2 seasons of 13 plus touchdowns, which is crazy. But
Gronk never did.
No, Gronk had 17, which is, he led the league in touchdowns in his second year, but he never got to 13. The highest he got after that was 12. Isn't that correct? Like, that is the weirdest Vernon Davis stat of all time.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
Jimmy Graham, nope. Got to 16 once, but never got back to that level. Let me just check Antonio Gates because I'm pretty sure he's the only guy that could threaten it.
No.
He got to 13 once and never got there again. He got to 12. Isn't that is just such a bizarre Vernon Davis stat?
Yeah, that's wild. I would have thought Gronk for sure. Gates, I knew no, but that's because I know his career extremely well because the whole Breeze connection that came in together and all that stuff. But yeah, I would have thought somebody else has done it.
Nope, Vernon Davis. So that's why he's number 2 on the list. I'm kind of surprised we agree, but I'm glad because like Bonta and Chasky were like, he's an all-time. And then after I ended the interview, they were still responding to it, and they were just ripping through all the great games Deebo Samuel has had. The one weird one I thought was odd was they gave him credit for the Packers game where they didn't score an offensive touchdown, and they were like, oh, he was carrying the team. It's like, they didn't score an offensive touchdown. Like, how much credit are we giving him for that one?
Deebo does have some great games, but he also has a high percentage of bust games.
That's what I
problem. Like he's either dominating or he's hurting the team. Not his fault. It's just the team. If the other team decides we're not allowing this to be a Deebo game, there's nothing he can do about it. But the team still force feeds him the ball sometimes.
He did have a hell of a Super Bowl as a rookie. 5 catches for 39 yards, 3 carries for 53 yards. And honestly, I think if they had given him a couple more carries, he probably would have had more rushing yards because every time they gave him the damn ball in that Super Bowl, it worked. But yeah, no, I like.
It's not even 100 yards though.
I know.
I mean, it's a good game, but it's not like you're talking all the time. Like he's got to have something crazy.
Yeah, and he's had those in the playoffs for the record. I mean, against Seattle, he was fantastic, right? 6 catches for 133 yards and a touchdown, 3 carries for 32 yards. That's a fantastic playoff game, 100%. He made a lot of big plays against the Cowboys. Again, he has great games. There's nobody denying that. But you're talking all time for the San Francisco 49ers. I got to see more. Not yet, Deebo. Keep grinding, though. Give me another great year, and maybe after this year we can talk about it.
Like you said, he could get there. If he finishes out his contract and the team keeps him around, and he has like 3 years where he averages combined with the rushing like 1,300 yards, he probably enters that conversation and probably has a pretty good argument. You know, that would give him like essentially 4,000 more yards to his career numbers. Now you're approaching, if I had to guess, somewhere close to 10,000 career yards combined. Like, okay, now you're starting to enter that conversation.
And let's hope he does it. Like, I'm rooting for it to happen. I would love to see good Deebo this year. And everything we have seen, and by the way, I don't think it's a coincidence, but everything we have seen with Deebo is he's here, he's on time, he's doing the voluntary stuff, he's working on his route running, he's in shape, all that stuff. While all this Brandon Aiyuk stuff is going on, Debo is kind of doing all the stuff that we always gave Brandon Aiyuk credit for, frankly.
Yeah, I do find that humorous that the year Debo decides to change and not go to Miami to train all offseason is the year that his counterpart is trying to get the team to pay him to be the future.
Contract
Kind of
years.
funny. I don't know that it has anything to do with that, honestly. I don't think it does. I think it has to do with Debo's now lost 2 Super Bowls, and he's like, F this.
No, I think it absolutely has to do with the contract year, to be honest with you. By the way, speaking of Debo and the 49ers receiving room, did you see this from Juwan Jennings on his Instagram? Apparently, he posted, you got to be a different type of person to act like you're doing everything by yourself, knowing dang well you're not. Now, to be fair, he also in a later Instagram post specifically said, I wasn't talking about Brandon Aiyuk. If I was talking about him, I would have added him. Like, I would have mentioned him. Like, he's claiming it has nothing to do with Brandon Aiyuk. I know a lot of people saw that and were like, whoa, what's going on with Juwan Jennings? I don't read anything into this. Would be really out of character, I feel like, for Juwan Jennings if all of a sudden he was going to throw a right cross to Brandon Aiyuk.
Yeah, I think he's telling the truth that it has nothing to do with Ayuk, but the point I would make is like, I'll just say, how freaking dumb do you and Debo need to be? They do this all the time. Now, I shouldn't say they do this. Debo does this all the time, and now Jennings has done it. I'm going to post something cryptic that could be negative when there's this thing going on that everybody's going to think it's about, and then you come out hours later going, hold on, it wasn't about that. It's like, okay, then don't post it because you know dang well how it's going to be taken. Debo just did that again this week. He posted something, and then he had to go say, that wasn't about Ayuk. You all need to chill. It's like, how many times have you told us we need to chill? Like, learn your lesson.
Look, I give players can obviously put anything they want on social media at any time. It's their account. They're free to do whatever they want. But you can't get mad at us when we see what you write and we think, hey, does this have to do with football? Like, both things are okay. Like, for them to say, now he didn't, to be fair, Juwan did not criticize anybody. He just said, never would I diss my brother Brandon Aiyuk. Broski made man. What's wrong with the internet? I promise app would have followed after my statement if I was talking about a specific person. Okay, I guess he kind of did criticize a little bit. Like, dude, you can't get mad at us and we think you're talking about football, especially a week before training camp starts. I don't get down with that.
Hey, this thing I do that I'm known for, like that without that I wouldn't be known at all. Yeah, everybody's going to assume it has to do with that. That's like a politician posting something cryptic and everybody assuming it's about politics and then going, hey, that had nothing to do with politics. Why are you all so dumb? Like, of course we assume that.
And I'm willing to take him on his word. If he says it's not about Brandon Aiyuk, great. It's not about Brandon Aiyuk. But I don't blame anybody for looking at that and being like, damn, that raised their eyebrows a little bit.
I think it had nothing to do with Ayuk, but I think like the time to be naive about this stuff is long gone.
Players do use social media to send messages all the time. So it's not like, where could you ever get the idea that a player might send a message on social media? Like, no, this is a normal thing. It's okay to bring it up. He responded to it. He shot it down. I'm fine.
These damn aggregators making everything worse.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that tweet from Kawakami. And I quote tweeted him and I was like, I wonder why people would be looking beyond the 49ers beat news. Like, and even Grant earlier today, because again, we're recording this on Wednesday. He said, oh, well, you know, the NFL media gets fed these stories. That's the way it's always worked. It's like, okay, first of all, I've had people from NFL media claim that that's not true. Now, whether that is or isn't, I don't know. But also, like, so you just throw your hands up in the sky and don't even try anymore? Like, what the hell is that? It's your job to try.
I'll say this. One, he's wrong and right. Yeah, it probably is how it works a good bit of the time that the NFL media itself is fed it rather than the local beat reporters. But that's not always the case. There are plenty of instances where a local news person broke the story. That happens every year, many, many times, that somebody else breaks the story that's not tied to the NFL network or NFL, the league itself. But I will say this for Grant. It probably is not worth his time because of the road that he's taken, and it's working great success for him, but he is the vocal critic. The vocal critic doesn't tend to be able to gain inside sources from players to break news. That's not the
Yeah.
type of people that are capable of breaking news. The type of people that can break news are the Lombardis and especially the Mayokos. Those are the people that should be breaking news, and they don't.
But this is what's frustrating, right? What happened on the same day as the Brandon Aiyuk trade request? We found out Ricky Pearsall was on the non-football injury list, right? And right after he got put on the non-football injury list, we had either Barrows or Mayoko, I can't remember which one, say, "Whoop, I'm hearing it's a minor injury." So, like, when they want to get information and put stuff out there, especially if it's good for the team, all of a sudden they can mobilize, right? All of a sudden it's no problem. But yet, anything critical about the team, we don't hear about. Nothing. Crickets. Oh, well, NFL media, yeah, NFL media gets the stories. We can't, like, what the hell, man? So, and then for Kyle Kami to throw stones at people who are trying to actually do that, and I get it. Sometimes those people are wrong, and they may be wrong a lot, but I don't blame other 49er fans out there for saying, hey, this person is saying something about my team. Yeah, I'm going to follow them, when the beat writers are doing none of that.
I do find it funny in this scenario, him using the aggregator, that, like, because it was about the Devontae Adams trade rumor, and that then he painted the picture as that came out, and then the aggregators posted it over and over again to get engagement themselves, which then made it a much bigger thing than it really should have been. There's nothing to it. Yet if you go to The Athletic and really just about any media sources, what do they do often in their stories? They post a link to somebody else's Twitter to show the Twitter post. That's aggregating. You do it too.
Well, and not only that, look, I've been in the press conferences. You get one question pretty much in a press conference, and then
lucky.
else gets a question. And then you know what you do? You write an article with all the quotes based on everybody else's question. You know what you're doing? You're aggregating the quotes from the press conference to make your article. Like, and here's the tweet. It's on the screen for anyone that's watching on YouTube. And if you're just listening, quote, I repeat, why do so many fans depend on aggregators who almost always get things wildly wrong? I guess that falls into the wish fulfillment category. Fans just want to make themselves feel better, and they'll run to make-believe stuff if reality is too mean. No, Tim, we just want people that are actively trying to find out what's going on with the 49ers instead of just sitting back with their hands in their pockets, waiting for to, just swallow whatever crap PR message the team puts out there. So that's the truth.
I'll give him credit for the last part, because the last part is true. That does play a part. We have talked about that a little bit on air and more off air, that if you go Mr. Positive, suddenly you get a lot more engagement because fans are looking. It's their favorite team.
David Lombardi.
A majority of fans don't want to hear the negative. They want to hear how great their favorite team is. So they tend to engage with the people that are always spinning things positive. So he's not wrong that, yes, you would get a lot of engagement on the wishful thinking fulfillment type of angle that he's taking there. But the reason why aggregators are so big in the 49ers media game is because the 49ers media aren't digging. They're not doing anything. They're just reporting the news as somebody else reports it. If the team does a press release, oh, here's what happened. If a national guy breaks the news, oh, now suddenly we're going to post about it. They're not driving news themselves.
Yeah. So if Lombardi is, if Kyle Kami's sitting there saying, well, fans like wish fulfillment, like, call out David Lombardi, because that's all he does.
I almost responded to him with that, and I was like, it's not worth my time. And then I immediately saw your response to him.
Like, again, you're throwing stones from a glass house here. Like, that really, it's frustrating for me.
He's throwing stones from within the same house, because at this point, aggregators are in the media house. The game has changed.
And, like, you can't sit there and yell at and criticize other people when the guy the team drafted 3rd overall and gave up 3 first-round draft picks for was benched because the veterans on the team revolted and told the head coach, we don't want this guy in the field. And not a single one of you people ever asked the head coach about it on the record in a press conference. You can't sit there and throw stones. Like, what are you doing? Of course, people are going to want more information. And every beat writer knew it happened. They knew it happened. They never said anything. And then after Trey Lance was gone, they all acknowledged it happened and that they knew about it. Like, What the hell, man? That's what's frustrating to me.
I mean, the most obvious storyline to show the 49ers beat reporters MO is the Brandon Aiyuk doghouse.
Yes.
They not only didn't report on it, they ignored it for years, and then they denied it outright. They publicly denied it multiple times. No, there never was a doghouse. That's made up. If I'm not mistaken, one of them, it was either Lombardi or Mayoko, even came out and said the doghouse is just an aggregator's storyline. Like blamed people like us for making it anything, until suddenly this year it gets confirmed that he was in the doghouse. And I think it was Mayoko that was like, yeah, there was one. It's like, oh, hold on, you denied it multiple times. So what's going on here? Right there shows you the lack of credibility. That's why I don't look at them in the same light that I used to, because it's been made abundantly clear that they do squash stories and they do purposely tell lies to get favoritism from the team.
And Kyle Posey wrote about it at Niners Nation, the doghouse. I wrote about it because it didn't match up with what Kyle Shanahan was saying. That's why we were all up at arms. He said, well, we haven't been playing Brandon Aiyuk because of his hamstring, but yet they put him back to return punts in the same game. And it's like, well, wait, why are you giving this guy extra duty if you're worried about his hand? Like there was a clear conflict there, and they just swallowed it, man. They just did not. It was so obvious. So that's why the rest of us were like, hey, this doesn't make sense. And to be told that we just like made it up, that it wasn't true, like that's the frustrating part for me. It's not just, hey, we're not doing our job. It's also when people point it out, oh, you're aggregators. It's the condescension that really ticks me off.
And look, I am somebody that comes from the old media guard. That's what's like in here. Like that's my mind works that way. I think of myself and will always see myself as like an old media type. And I personally don't like the way it's gone. I wish the media game hadn't changed.
Yeah.
I wish the beat reporters and the columnists and everything were still these like great things where like they truly drove the conversation because they dug, there were two words for it, either investigative reporting or enterprise reporting. It was things other than here's what happened and who did it. You know what I mean? It's here's what's happening behind the scenes. Here's something you may not have seen because it didn't happen in front of everybody. Those type of stories. I miss those stories, and we still don't get them with, from people like us because we don't have the access. But I do I wish it was still the old way. So it like, yeah, I'm ragging on them. But part of the reason why I do is because I know what that, not their job specifically, but I know what that role is from having done similar jobs. And it pains me to see them not doing it in the same way.
And I know we sound like a couple of old men yelling at clouds here, but
isn't that funny? Like we're the old men yelling at clouds, but they're the actual old men who refuse to change their ways.
Yeah, well, look, we're going to have boots on the ground at training camp. Steph Sanchez, Jason Aponte will be at training camp for the Gold Standard Network this year. So they'll be doing reports every day where they're at practice. So we will have the latest for you. So you can stick with us, like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Rate, review, and follow wherever you get your audio podcasts. I promise you, we will earn your time. If you're just joining us, shout out to everybody. There's over 300 people watching right now, which is awesome and fantastic. Nice to see, the numbers start to come back a little bit as we are less than a week away from training camp. I know it hurt. I know the off season was long, and I don't want to say cold because it's the summer, but long and dark, especially considering what happened. But we're so close, Levin. A week, and we're going to be right back into this thing again.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Brock Purdy being only 6 of 11. Has he been figured out by his own defense? Oh boy, he threw an interception.
Here's what I want to know, damn it. How is Josh Dobbs doing at training camp? That's the story we need.
Josh Dobbs might start.
Oh, man. It's going to be, you know what? It'll be a lot more chill, hopefully, I think, but it should be a lot more fun, too. Perfect time to hop on board if you are just joining us. It's going to be a hell of a season. Levin, I hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday night. Enjoy your Thursday if you're listening on Thursday, everybody. And we will be back on Friday.